start with the event, and I would like to invite our director, Mr. Liu, to officially open this global tour, which is landing now in Turin for the next hour. Mr. Liu, can I invite you to the stage to open it on behalf of the center?
Hello from Turin, Italy. Ladies and gentlemen, today the International Training Center of ILO will be broadcasting live for the next hour. We are glad to be part of the 24-hour global tour. Over the past 55 years, International Turing Center has been committed in advancing social justice and promoting decent work. We run capacity building activities for workers, employers, and governments through innovative and diverse learning methodologies. We are excited to celebrate the past 100 years and look forward to experiencing the next 100. The International Training Center has always been an open environment for conversation, for innovation, and for experimentation. You will find this is a place where different perspectives coexisted, where people imagine better world of work. Today, we will consider the future, the nexus of future of work and the future of learning. We are especially glad to welcome our guest today, an international group of young people, the students from local universities. Their generation is already working for future. We hope you enjoy the hour-long exploration of the future of work and learning and find the connection between the two. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Liu, our director. We have indeed a very exciting hour in front of us, which will be a mix of different interventions to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the ILO. We're celebrating 100 years of past by looking actually to the next 100 years of the future, because the future will be the key entry points of the conversation that we're having today. I was just looking at a tweet of our Director General, Guy Ryder, yesterday. I think it was in New York, and he told the audience that he was inspired to engage with young leaders at the ECOSOC Youth Forum. And he stated that youth will be or will have a decisive role in shaping the future of shaping the future of work we want. And it's on that we want dimension that we have invited young people here in Turin, but also globally, to think about what an ideal future would look like. We engaged with young talent from here. We engaged also with the City of Turin, who's hosting this beautiful campus. And we also engaged with other actors in the world of learning. So today, when we talk about the future, we thought we cannot do it alone. We're going to have a conversation with someone who's specialized in the future. And I would like to invite Gert Leonard on the stage right now. He's specialized in the future. He's a futurist, according to the Wall Street Journal, one of the most influential futurists. And we asked him to ask us a few provocative future questions. Questions on the future that are not only related to technology, but that dive also deep into humanity. Questions not only related to artificial intelligence or digital ethics, but also what does it mean for future leadership? What does it mean for foresight? So that we jointly, with Gert, with our students, can write a story about a human future. And in this way also celebrate the 100th anniversary of the ILO. Gert, I'm going to give you the floor to share some introduction reflections, after which we will go into conversation with the young people here in the room. Over to you.
Thanks very much. I have to activate the microphone. Buonasera. This is the first time I started an event in Italy that was early. So that's definitely one to mark for us. So I want to show you the future real quick, give you a first taste of the future. Hello, it's a great pleasure to be with you today. The future is already here, is just unevenly distributed.
Ciao, è un grande piacere di essere con voi oggi. Il futuro è già qui, è solo uniformemente distribuito.
Was that bad? Was it good? Yeah. This is an app that translates me in real time. This is Star Trek, 20 years ago. Now I can go to a sushi restaurant in Tokyo and speak to the Japanese cook in German. As long as I keep it simple. This shows us a clue of the future. Machines will do all kinds of amazing things, but they will have a very hard time doing things that humans do. I mean, when I speak to the machine, I speak in a very particular way, and it's fine, right? But if I speak like a person, it's more difficult. What do I do as a futurist? This is my job, is to pay attention, to observe. That's actually a very good job to have for the future, observing things. And as I like to say jokingly, lots of people, the future is already here. The future is not tomorrow. It's already everywhere here. It's a mindset. It's in our heads. When you go to China, you see the future. When you go to Silicon Valley, you see the future. And the future is already everywhere around us. It's mind-boggling, the speed of the future. And a lot of people are scared about this. I mean, they're scared for various reasons, climate change, politics, and of course, robots. And intelligent machines will take our work, and then they will come to kill us. That's why the future is bad. Lots of people are concerned about technology, and I want to start with this by saying I think the future is better than we think. A lot better than we think. There's only one thing that we have to do. We have to govern it wisely. Because technology will enable us to solve diseases, to solve climate change eventually, albeit a little stretch for this one, right? To switch to renewable energy, to solve food and water, but we have to govern it. And governance, of course, is a difficult topic when it's about technology, because now we're living in a world that is exponentially exploding. Moore's law, Metcalfe's law, and all the different laws of physics, basically saying technology increases every 18 months in its power, twice as much, half the cost. So the curve looks like this. And then we have science inventing new things every week. Cloud computing, robotics, the blockchain. We have the convergence of industries as a result. For example, the convergence of the bio industry, healthcare, and information technology. Now, I used to be in the music business, and the same thing happened to the music business roughly 10 years ago. Now the music business is about technology. The most powerful company in music is not Sony Music, it's Spotify. Right? This is a transition of technology, right? And so these three words are the future if we think about work and learning, right? Exponential, combinatorial, converging industries. It's going to ask us to reinvent pretty much all the time. That can be a terrible thing when you're not used to it, but think about the possibilities. Think about what we can achieve here. Think about how many jobs, for example, will be generated in renewable energy. Tens of millions. 10 years ago, we didn't have jobs in social media because there was no social media. Now 21 million people work in social media. So there's always new jobs, new things happening. If we're looking at what's happening, for example, with robotics, I mean, robots are getting cheaper by the minute. Now the industrial robot will cost less than $10,000. That's going to mean every factory that can will use robots. That has a huge impact on work. Image level recognition, human recognition of images compared to computers. Computers are learning how to recognize images, whether it's as a doctor, right, or whether it's in traffic or face recognition. All technology has potentially amazing good use and some really bad use. We have to balance that, and we have to figure out how we're going. But basically what we're seeing here is an explosion of new things. I mean, look at this curve, all the inventions, the telephone, the automobile, the computer, the internet. But now, I mean, consider yourself lucky you're living in this world, right? You're living in this world where basically in 10 years, the sky is the limit. I have mixed feelings about this. I think some of that is really good, and I think we're already seeing new jobs and new occupations coming. And otherwise, I worry about things like what's going to happen to people who can't upgrade their skills. And those, are we going to have equality? Because so far, technology has not brought us much equality. That's a major issue to think about where it's going. We're going to have a future to where genome sequencing will change us. I mean, think about this idea of reprogramming the human genome. Already been done in China. You know? There was a huge experiment on this, and a huge debate, ethical debate. In 20 years, we can probably prevent diabetes by genetic engineering. That's 400 million people. So in this future, these are the major game shifts. You can see them all in the book, and I'll explain in more detail, but just to give you an overview, data will be taken from everywhere. We have intelligent machines. We have connected networks, smart cities, 3D printing. Talked about that for 20 years, but it's finally here. Everything is moving into the cloud. Music, films, television, banking, dating, all in the cloud. Computing with quantum computing. In 5 years, we'll have this machine will have a capacity 1 million times of this box. This device here has a capacity of the same computer that brought the Americans to the moon, just in this one device. So we're talking about exponential change. We're talking about blockchain. We're talking about 3D computing and of course, virtuality and all these kind of things. So as an example, you're familiar with digital assistants, machines that you can speak to. Alexa, Amazon Home, of course, Siri, Cortana, all the things that we speak to, that we interact with. Well, now you can ask them really complicated questions. And you can speak to your machine. I mean, what is that going to do to call centers, for example? That's 21 million jobs. If I can call somebody and that's a computer on the other line, we don't need people. So this is the new normal. In the next 5 years, we're all going to talk to computers as if they were friends, because they will understand us. Not understand like a human, but close enough to change a flight or book a hotel or do simple banking. Great example is a commercial here made by Google just a couple of weeks ago. If you're a science fiction fan, you may know this movie, Space Odyssey 2001. Anybody, yeah? Come on, yes. Yeah. Okay, good. Now, this movie was used by Google for a short commercial that shows you where things are going.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hey, Google, open the pod bay doors.
It's a funny commercial showing that basically Hal wouldn't do it because he was evil, but Google will do it, right? Because Google is not evil. I leave that question hanging in the room for your consideration. But here's a big question. Who will we trust? This is the key question. With technology becoming so powerful, who do we trust? And how do we actually figure out who's in charge? And we're moving into a world, this is a first headline before we go to the hackathon back. When machines can see and hear and speak and think, I put this in parentheses, because it can't really think, but think like a machine. Learning, working, as usual, is over. That's the next 10 years. Machines are going to learn everything that has to do with facts and logic, not emotion, not being human, bookkeeping, driving, call center, even computing. So learning and working as we know it is going to be over. I think business as usual will be over. I think that's primarily a good thing, but I'll talk more about that in the next few sessions. Thanks very much, and let's go to the hackathon.
Thank you, Gert. And these introduction reflections we'll share with the stories that our students were writing in the hackathon, and just referring to one quote of our Director General yesterday, another
We named our world Unimondo, which in translation from Italian is one world.
The name of our world is Immortalia, and as you might guess, we actually said that the main thing that affected our new world was the invention of a cure to aging.
For starters, Mad World is a world where the continuous stream of information everybody receives on their phones and their computers and everything is more and more personalized.
So, Utopia, in a sense, it comes from Utopia, the island where the magic happens. And we think we are going to, in a world that is connected in every kind, in every sense.
The world for us in 11 years is on a climax of losing something that you can actually touch.
To celebrate the centenary of the ILO and participate in its 24-hour global tour, the ITC ILO organized a hackathon on the future of work and the future of learning. But what is a hackathon? A hackathon is an event in which students from different academic backgrounds, social scientists, designers and engineers work together to solve complex problems. The ITC ILO invited these young people to come up with diverse solutions to one overarching challenge. How do you envision the future of work and the future of learning in 2030? 5 teams put their heads together to create 5 near-future worlds. The best part is that no worlds looked alike. The students imagined different solutions to today's pressing issues, including diversity, aging, identity, and our relationship with technology. I hope you will enjoy today's event. I hope it will inspire you to think about how we can use empathy and foresight to advance social justice and promote decent work, from now until 2030 and beyond.
Hackathon that you quickly saw, we have developed 5 different stories with the students, and we have asked Gert to give us introductions to the different future teams and see what kind of stories the students came up from. We are going to serve in the next half hour stories that are related with artificial intelligence, surfing algorithmic landscapes, diving into the complex relationship between man and machine, moving forward into big data, datafication, and also the future world of skills. And finally, asking in the last theme, how can we rehumanize this and how can we stay human again and see what needs to be maintained and see what needs to be protected in a human world, in an accelerated world of work. So I would like to ask Gert back on stage to guide us into the first theme on AI. Gert, back to you.
Thank you. Artificial intelligence is actually neither. It's neither artificial nor is it intelligent. This computer is artificial, this chair is artificial, it's not a tree. Everything, that's hardly a distinction. An intelligent machine, think about intelligence. We have a very hard time even thinking about what makes a human intelligent. The machines that we see today are intelligent in their own way, and I explain what that means. But the stuff that we see in Hollywood, Transcendence, Ex Machina, Black Mirror, is entertaining. But if you want to think about the future, don't look for Hollywood. Except for maybe a very few movies like the first Blade Runner or so, right? And basically, we're looking at a future where artificial intelligence is the new normal. It's machines that can turn information and data into knowledge. The big difference is that these machines are programmed, but these machines do what's called machine learning or deep learning, which means they understand patterns and they can learn things themselves. But a human learns completely different than a machine. A machine goes, when I say pick up an image from XYZ, it goes there and it pulls out an image. But when you think of your husband or your wife, you don't go here and pull out an image. Right? It's a bit more complicated than that. So machines getting knowledge, that's a little bit of a threat to us. Because if machines can think, would they make decisions? You know, can they be explained? I mean, this is a very, very big challenge. And this discipline, you know, currently, if you're in the turf of machine learning or deep learning, you have the highest paid jobs in the world. That's what everybody wants. All the major advances in the last few months are based on machine learning and deep learning, which is to recognize patterns, to act like the human brain. And now we have a whole bunch of industries coming through this whole idea of saying, okay, what's actually going to happen with digital? Let me go back to this. A place, basically, this whole idea of saying we're going to stick something in here and it comes out to be transformed. Yeah, I call this the digital transformer. But we have to think about this, you know, when the whole world gets smart cities, smart farming, smart government, it should not lead to the world being just for efficiency. Now, we've seen on social media like Facebook that efficiency can sometimes not be such a good thing. You know, a little bit of humanity would help us. When we think about artificial intelligence, I think we should think about something a little bit different. I call this IA rather than AI, intelligent assistants. These are systems that are fancy software that help us do our job, that schedule meetings, that call people for us, you know, basically do our routine work. And if you look at what companies are investing in, that's pretty much it. Image recognition, fraud recognition, prevention, you know, software jobs, basically. So when you think about artificial intelligence, think about intelligent assistants, take away the fear, You know, the fear really comes when we move this up the scale in the next 30 years. And I would agree on Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking, when machines become truly intelligent, and then when they become generally intelligent, what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, that can't be good for us. I mean, think about a machine that has an IQ of 1 million, and that connects to other machines that have IQs of 1 million, and many, many others, and that upgrade themselves. Probably wouldn't end well for us. So I think we should make a cut here, you know, and figure out a moratorium on how we're going to use the super intelligent machines. Too much of a good thing can be a very bad thing. We know that from lots of things, right? But it's especially true for artificial intelligence. Back to the hackathon.
Thank you, Gert. What we're doing now is actually showing the different stories that the hackathon young students have written together. We have 5 pitches, and we'll start with the first pitch. A story that is called Diversify, a story that was basically a solution or addressing the echo chambers that we actually meet in the online world, where actually our own opinion is always amplified. So let's start and see the video.
Everybody will tell you, you don't judge a book by its color, race, or gender. The problem is, we're in 2030 and people are still being judged by either by their ethnicity, class, or gender. Here, we at Diversify is where we step in. This is the first social network for ideas. Create and pitch your ideas to the whole internet through your phone. Browse the ideas of thousands of other users and share the best ones. Even create teams and compete on the international level for a chance to get a startup. Diversity is our power and is linked with innovation. Diversity is the thing that will break us out of our echo chambers and back into our real world. So remember, diversify. Like Facebook, like Kickstarter, like Change.org, all meld together. Judge ideas, not people.
Here, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
She's based in Milan and working and studying there as a service designer. And it's good to have the students here also to reflect upon what happened in the hackathon. You were part of the Diversify group, that concept that you have developed, and it was basically addressing the fact that we're not only listening to the other arguments anymore because we are locked up into the echo chambers of the internet, which amplify only our own voices. Having worked with this group of students, what were for you the most important lessons that you've learned in the hackathon?
I would say that, first of all, our discussion has been enriched by the fact that everybody was from a different background. As a consequence, we could tackle the same theme through a multidisciplinary perspective, and that was really useful. And our main understandings have been, first, the fact that we understood that people tend to judge according to their bias as a sort of survival mechanism, and this locks them in their own conceptions. So to help them unlock this sort of situation, we wanted to promote a concept giving prevalence to ideas and keeping identities for a sort of second stage. So we wanted to these anonymous ideas to be promoted first.
Okay, thanks a lot. You were there with a very specific profile. You're a service designer, and you said you design for societal change and in a way also for social justice. Can you explain maybe a bit more concretely to the audience what that means, and also design thinking and design service designer, what do these design skills contribute to your future of work?
All right. So design, as you know, is the approach, is the human-centered approach towards problems resolution. Service design, in particular, adopts a systemic view, so it operates on a more strategic level. And within service design, design for societal change relates to people, of course, but intends people not as individuals, but as communities. And this is very crucial to point out because it means that you have to think about collective needs that in a way are really different, even opposite to individual ones. And the challenge becomes that of finding the right trade-off between diversity and freedom on one hand and equality and justice on the other. And I think that it is intrinsic of design to teach people about adaptability, flexibility, and resilience. And these, I would say, are the main characteristics that will be asked in the future of work in general, so that I will bring with me in a way.
Okay, thanks. So one of the jobs of the future, which brings us actually now to the second team, and I would like to invite Gert back on the stage because he's going to introduce our complex relationship between man and machine. So Gert, over to you.
Thanks very much. You won't get rid of me tonight for the next hour. So, humans and machines. This is what's happening all around us, right? Technology and humanity are converging. I say this parenthesis. I don't want to converge with technology. But it's quite clear when I use this, I have superpowers. And when I use the augmented reality or virtual reality helmet or the brain-computer interface, I become superhuman. The handshake between humans and machines. And that's going to explode. There isn't much we can do about this. The only thing we can do about this is say, okay, what is enough? When is enough enough? But can we just leave it? I think this is a huge discussion that we have to have, partly because of this. You know, when you look at human intelligence, it has been defined by Gartner and others as 8 or 10 or sometimes 12 different things. Machine intelligence is just logic. It's binary, zeros and ones. If this, then that. That's what the computer does. But it does it without limitation. So in the very near future, I can have a real-time calculation of my DNA in 14 seconds rather than 14 days is what it takes today. Unlimited numbers. But this is what makes us human. Some research has shown that women, for example, have more emotional intelligence, which some people are saying makes them more suitable for the future. Because guess what the skills are of the future? They're not the skills that the machine can do. I mean, the machine can calculate and do all these things, can look at, you know, for example, if you have a machine that's looking at oncology pictures, melanomas and those kind of things, it can look at 500 billion images. No doctor can do that. As the great roboticist and other futurist Moravec once said, whatever is very simple for a human is very hard for a computer, and vice versa. Do not compete with the computer on the stuff that's simple for a computer. We were able to do that today because machines are still pretty lame until just recently. But this machine here is not lame, no matter what branch you use. I mean, it's powerful. So in the future, you know, especially when you have kids, you got to think about this. When you take a machine and you give the machine all the input you have, for example, I used to study philosophy, so I feed the machine all of the books of philosophy. IBM Watson, for example, can read about 1.2 million books a minute. Okay? So if I feed IBM Watson all the books of philosophy, does that make IBM Watson, the machine, a philosopher? I think we would all agree that's not the case. But it has read all the books. So if I ask the machine to say, tell me at which point in the book do you see the word happiness, it would give me a huge list instantly, which I can't. But if I would try to say, what does it feel to be happy? I would get no response from the computer, from the machine. So data and information is not knowledge, it's not understanding, it's not wisdom, it's not purpose. That's our job. However, we should not compete with computers on data and information. And this is where learning is going to change. Downloading information for later use hardly makes sense. When you have unlimited information at your fingertips, or your eye tips, if you wish. That's something we have to think about. Luciano Floridi, who is actually from Italy and now in Oxford at the Center for Ethics, he said that AI can and will outperform humans when it is not about understanding emotions, intentions, interpretations, language skills, or general intelligence. So I would say it's pretty much almost everything that we do. It's hard for the computer to outperform us, except for standard routine jobs, which I'll talk more about in the next session. Back to the hackathon. Thank you.
Thank you, Gert. We're moving towards the second story, which is labeled as Humanet. This group of students immediately took robots and robotization as a starting point, but the more they were diving into the conversation, the more human actually the conversation started worth. And the final concept that they came up with will be explained in the next 2 minutes, as soon as it's on board. Okay.
Imagine a world where robots are independent and able to control humans. This future isn't far away. How can we limit their freedom? According to the 3 laws of robotic development, 1, a robot cannot injure a human. 2, a robot must obey all orders given by humans, unless it doesn't apply to the first rule. 3, all robots must protect their own existence, unless it doesn't comply with the first and second law. In order to enforce these 3 rules, our solution is HumanNet. HumanNet is a network of people, of humans, that control and monitor robotic activity. All activity is open and accessible to the network. HumanNet will give power back to the people and control over the robots.
Delphine Dallagata with us. Sounds like an Italian name, but you're from Chicago, USA. Yeah. And Delphine, you were part of this group. What was for you the most inspiring element at the hackathon?
The most inspiring aspect of the hackathon was definitely diversity for me. Be that it's cultural diversity. In my team, we had people from Uzbekistan, Ukraine, Italy, United States, and also academic diversity, coming from backgrounds in blockchain research, in design, software development, foreign language. So being able to discuss, collaborate, and create with such a team really showed the value of an interdisciplinary approach and the importance of having these various perspectives in order to create a well-rounded final product.
Okay, robots were at the center stage of your hackathon discussions, but the final concept you developed was something very human. It's called HumanNet.
Very overwhelmed with the idea of a machine-powered world, and so we decided to take a more optimistic twist on the project and thought about what keeps us inherently human, and skills like creative problem solving, expressing empathy, being able to distinguish between right and wrong, are skills that are irreplaceable by a machine. So through HumanNet, we were really trying to give power back to the people, as we said, and underline the value of these soft skills and the importance of developing them today and for the future.
Okay, thanks a lot, Delphine. And let's move over to the next stage, because we are here in this beautiful campus of the International Training Center, which is hosted by the City of Turin. We also had the opportunity to speak with responsibles of the city that have created and dedicated a Turin City Lab, which is very closely connected to the different themes of our future conversation today. So we have asked the Deputy Mayor, Paola Pisani, to tell us what this Turin City Lab is all about and how it connects also with the themes that were introduced by Gert. So,
Paola Pisano, assessore all'innovazione del Comune di Torino. Inizio facendo i complimenti per questo bellissimo evento che ci riempie di lustro per la nostra città, anche perché all'interno della nostra città c'è il campus dell'ILO, quindi per noi è un evento di una importanza straordinaria, perché raccoglie intorno a sé non solo concetti e settori importanti per il futuro della nostra città, ma anche perché raccoglie intorno a sé molti giovani. Allora, noi a Torino stiamo cercando di portare le innovazioni e il futuro attraverso un nuovo approccio, che è quello della sperimentazione all'interno di tutta la città su particolari settori tecnologici, per noi estremamente importanti. Perché? Perché prima di tutto a Torino abbiamo un ecosistema intorno a questi settori, e poi perché saranno i settori che faranno crescere le tecnologie del futuro. Ci rivolgiamo all'automotive e principalmente alla tecnologia del trasporto autonomo, all'aerospace con i droni e il trasporto sia dell'ultimo miglio di beni che di persone, alle telecomunicazioni con la tecnologia 5G e tutti i servizi che nasceranno intorno a questa tecnologia, e poi alla robotica, principalmente robotica collaborativa. Cosa facciamo a Torino? Attiriamo quali aziende che hanno voglia di sperimentare innovazione di frontiera allo stadio precommerciale, gliela facciamo sperimentare all'interno della nostra città, dando tutti gli asset che noi abbiamo all'interno della città, dandogli le autorizzazioni qualora mancassero, dandogli strade, palazzi, i dati e anche i nostri cittadini per i test. Una volta che loro dimostrano la validità della loro iniziativa, noi come città ci poniamo come partner di innovazione e quindi aiutiamo le aziende a scalare. E in questo modello cos'è importante? È importante il fatto che noi stiamo cercando di portare all'interno di una città e quindi di un paese delle opportunità per creare il lavoro del futuro, e sta proprio a voi giovani riuscire a cogliere queste opportunità e farle crescere, sfruttare tutto l'ecosistema che noi stiamo portando nella nostra città per creare competenze, nuovi posti di lavoro e per far davvero crescere le tecnologie che daranno un volto nuovo alle nostre città.
You back on stage because we're going to dive into our third trend of today, which is connected to big data, datification, and a term you have used in your book, the global brain. Over to you.
Thank you. So you've seen this before. We called the Skynet 20 years ago. I mean, this is really what's going on all around us. All of the information that we provide is going into a giant global depository. In fact, Google calls this the global brain. And in Switzerland, where I live, we have a global brain project. And there's another 50 companies around the world that do this sort of information gathering. Also, by the way, this is Facebook, right, in a nutshell. It takes the information and sells it back to the advertiser. So we can safely say when machines can do this and that they can make sense out of things, you know, digitization, cognification, making things smart, automation, it's the end of routine for us. Because, you know, anything that's kind of not requiring human things, eventually machines, you know, after looking at 500 billion images, machines can figure it out. Shop floor knowledge, manufacturing, welding, factories. So this is a very, very big thing. I think automation is a much bigger challenge than globalization. And many people have already complained about globalization as being a major issue, obviously. Right? But now automation is coming, basically some people saying 50 or 60% of all our jobs can be somewhat automated. But here's the good news. Lots of research shows that we can automate many things, but there's only 5% of all jobs that can be completely automated. Driving a car is a great example. You get somebody to drive an automated car like a Tesla or whatever in Los Angeles in the traffic jam, that's fine. But try to get the same person in an automated car in Rome. Right? That's not the same thing. So it can be automated, but not completely. And I think really we have to get used to this idea, you know, basically whatever routine is, it is coming. The end of routine is not the end of our work. I mean, you wouldn't look at your own work and say, I'm so proud of my routine. You know, the drudgery, the pushing numbers around or whatever. We all do lots of routines. What if the routine goes away? Then we can do other things. But if your job is 100% routine, like checkout in the supermarket or a call center, yeah, then you have an issue. That's something we have to look at as a society. Non-routine work is the future. You can already see that here. If you have kids, do not let them learn anything that involves routine, because that job will not exist in the near future. The Economist already shows non-routine manual work, artists, craftspeople, writers, cooks, therapists, dancers, priests, and so on. Non-routine work like this, yeah, will go on, but everything else will go down. If your job is routine, the machines will do it. Our jobs are going to be much more freelance and the gig economy and outside of companies. Some people are saying 50% of all jobs by 2030 are not actually in a company. And if we have those kind of jobs, we cannot have the sort of digital feudalism that we have today with Uber or Airbnb or TaskRabbit or all those interesting, nice things. We have to actually have some justice for people working in those systems, right? That's going to be a huge societal challenge. Job decline in some sectors is put off by job increase in other sectors. I mean, you can see on this graph, 90% of people used to work in agriculture in Europe. And now it's like this. All these new things are happening with jobs. So there's reason to be optimistic, but it will take some new skills. Great thing I read in the New York Times a few days ago. Headline was, human contact is now a luxury good. It's so true. It's basically offline is the new luxury, and dealing with people costs extra money. Right? But that's clearly a sign of where things are going. I think when something becomes abundant, like connectivity, then whatever is scarce, that's the new value. So again, if you have kids, think about that. What they should be learning is not necessarily how to program, because that's not going to be scarce in 5 years. Machines will program themselves. It's about the things that we can do as humans. Back to you.
Okay, we're over to the hackathon with a new story which is called the ProPass. And 4 or 3 students worked on a concept that tried to translate the global brain into a kind of eternal learning machine. And what this will look like, we will see in the next video. We have also one of the participants of the ProPass group with us so that we can ask her some questions.
In a world where you live forever.
Gert's presentation.
In a world where you live forever. How can you fill all of this time? We don't want you to feel unhappy, bored, or without an objective in your life. So this is why we created ProPass. ProPass is the app that follows you for 1 year and tracks what you like, what you don't like, your interests, and your skills. And after, it offers you the perfect career path. Have you ever thought about going to the moon? Have you ever thought about singing with your favorite artist? Have you ever thought about diving with sharks? ProPass gives you the possibility to do this. Live your perfect life for 100 years, and when you're bored, just change it. ProPass has 3 different sets. The first set is educational, the second one is practice, and the third one is your professional life. And ProPass will be there with you to guide you every step of the way. It will give you daily notifications, weekly and yearly, so you never miss a thing. Live a happier life.
Just for the record, the ProPass group was working in a scenario where they were living forever. It was important to understand. And Melissa Zelaya, you were part of this group. You're from El Salvador and currently doing an internship here at the International Training Center. So what did you learn at the hackathon?
Well, I think as everyone mentioned, the hackathon was a great experience because we got to interact with people that came from diverse backgrounds, cultural or educational, and that was just really good. Also, I think more and more young people were trying to find a space in which we can connect and interact and then talk about these issues that, you know, like it doesn't really require social media, but something more practical like these. And for me, I think the biggest lesson was just talking to these people and coming up with the idea, but just knowing that the diverse backgrounds, it really gives it a different story.
Okay, thanks. And you just finished your master studies right now. You were learning through our hackathon, but how do you see yourself learning in the future after developing your ProPass concept? What does learning for the future means for you?
Well, for sure, this was something that we discussed a lot in our team. What is the future? What will people learn in the future? And how will they learn it? And I think we're used to thinking of education as something you do in school or something you do in universities, but it doesn't really have to be this way anymore. And I think technology will help us do this, to reach education and knowledge for everyone, available really when you want it. So I think as young people, we're just really excited to see this new place in which knowledge and education can be shared.
Thanks a lot, Melissa. And these new ways of learning will require also new skills. And that's why I would like to invite Gert back on stage. The future of skills. What kind of skills do we need in these future scenarios? So Gert, back to you.
Thank you. So before we dive into this, a really great quote from Alvin Toffler, who, as you know, was probably the most eminent futurist in the world, who wrote a great book called Future Shock, which I recommend that you read. And he said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. He said that in the 60s. So it's really amazing to, what we have to do today is we have to say, well, technology is here, is going to do a lot of the grunt work, what I call the monkey work, all the stuff that we know they need to be doing. We have to jump into a new fishbowl. We have to change education by saying, okay, we can use these tools. It's very powerful stuff. What do we actually need to know in this new world? Listening to the presentation earlier about doing things online, I've come to see over the years that I think that happiness and hedonism, pleasure, are actually two completely different things. What I have in here on this screen, say I can get a lot of hedonism here, I can get lots of pleasure. I don't think I will find happiness in the screen, or in a cloud, or in an AI. Because happiness is completely different. It's outside of this idea of looking at stuff. I can look at 200 hours of YouTube on whatever I want here. Let's say I want to go to India, I can watch 200 videos in India. But when I'm in the bazaar in Mumbai, it takes me 3 seconds to learn more about Mumbai than I learned in 200 hours on YouTube. And why is that? Does it make YouTube bad? No, it doesn't. It's just different. We should make sure that we don't substitute things that we can actually have for ourselves. And the skills we need for this are completely different. We may not need the skills anymore that we used to think we need, like quality control and people management and all those things. And now it's the skills that used to be forbidden that we need. Critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, cognitive flexibility. Imagine 10 years ago, somebody in a company would have said, I want to hire an emotional person that asks critical questions, and that is a creative. They would have said, no way I want a person like this. It's a pain, right? And today, that's what everybody's asking for. HR people around the world are saying, we want people who are emotionally intelligent, who can invent stuff, who can ask questions, because Picasso already said, computers are really stupid. They can only give answers. It's about questions. And that's something that we have to learn. Going back to the brain, right? I think being faster and more intelligent, that's a good thing. I always strive for that. But in the end, we have to be more human. The only thing that makes us different from a machine is that we are human. I think for the next 100 years, that's going to be the case fairly safely. The future of work is to learn and work on skills that are human only. And there are a lot of those. And to keep working on those so that we can have just-in-time training. So when we look at this future, it's the EQ, right, the emotional quotient, and the IQ. It will not help you to just have a great IQ unless you're Einstein, right, who had actually both, was quite a genius, a polymath, as people say. So when we look at the future of education, STEM, that's what we're all doing now. We're saying, okay, if you can program, then you'll have a job. That's true for the next 5 years. Because computers are learning that too. They're learning bookkeeping, accounting, auditing, controlling. Machines are learning that. There's a great software in New Zealand called Xero that does your bookkeeping now in 40 languages in real time for $200. How much is your bookkeeper today? If you have a bookkeeper, 2,000 euros. The machine does it now, right? So now, let's take a look at Hacky, what I call Hacky in my book. And by the way, we do have some books later if you want one. Hacky, humanity, ethics, creativity, imagination. More philosophy, more music, more arts, more understanding, more ethics, all the things that are on the other side of the brain or in generally all over the brain. But ideally, of course, both. Let me make clear that in the future, if you don't understand science and technology, you are in deep trouble. But will that be your saving ticket for the future? Only if you're Einstein. That's my view. So the good thing about this is, the good story is that so many new jobs are being created every single day. The most commonly sought job these days is a drone operator. And I'm not talking about the army. I'm talking about delivering blood conserves in Mozambique. Right? Or figuring out how to do local distribution, those kind of things. That makes me very hopeful, but our kids have to invent their own jobs. That takes entirely different skills than falling into a job with a company. Right? So, thanks very much for listening.
Let's go back to the hackathon, where a fourth group worked on a concept. They called it the Bobby concept, which came from an animal that became very human. And let's see what this entails in the world of learning and also how it's connected to the world of skills.
So, imagine a world where robots and humans learn from each other. How can we reach this goal? Our answer is Bobby. Bobby will learn how to feel and how to interact with us, and we will gain a constant learning experience from him. We feed Bobby our feelings. Bobby feeds us information. Some of our main features of Bobby are connection to Wi-Fi, so he can connect to all the devices, so he can help us make coffee in the morning, wake us up, schedule our things. Please don't worry about your privacy, we care. With his face recognition-based technology, Bobby can keep a secret.
Someone from the hackathon, but a partner in learning, the European Training Foundation. We have Daria Santucci with us, and you have seen the presentation of Gert. The world of work is changing, and some jobs might be changing faster than others. According to the latest research, also research that ETF is doing, soon we will only be as good as the skills we possess. So which skills are they, and how can we make sure we keep pace?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to mention what the ETF is for those who don't know. The ETF is an EU agency. It means an EU institution, and we work in the countries surrounding the EU, from Ukraine to Kazakhstan to Morocco, and we help them reform the labor market and education systems. And very recently, we have launched a reflection with transition and developing countries exactly on the future of skills. And as Gert said, in the outcomes of a recent conference which we did, the soft skills were the ones which emerged as key, such as creativity and critical thinking, but technical skills remain at the core. And this is why in our reflections with transition and developing countries, we are focusing a lot on vocational education, because vocational education can be the place where the skills get closer to the job market. And when you ask, how can we do to keep the pace? Well, a functioning ecosystem is to be around, which means we have to invest on teachers, which means we have to invest on adult education, and which means that we have to do a strong coupling with career guidance. When we want to think about the future of skills, of course, we have to make also context-based reflections. And this is why we are about to launch a study exploring local best practices in countries like Morocco, Israel, and Turkey. And they are very soon launching a call for papers, and we invite the ILO community to join us.
Okay, so we're celebrating the 100th anniversary. The ILO is turning 100. ETF is still among the youth and turns 25 this year. So you also aim to bring people together to co-create and to learn from each other. So how is ETF going to engage with tomorrow's generations to inform policy making on skills, innovation and inclusion?
Well, the last word is really key, because for the past 25 years, we're a bit younger than the ILO, we've been putting inclusion at the core of our reflection on education and employability. And we've been liaising and engaging the tomorrow's generation already in the past, namely by initiatives such as the ETF for You, which was an initiative for the inclusion of the Mediterranean area, vlogs, videos by means of which we connect skills change makers with policymakers, and mostly with an intense scouting activity of innovations which could be potentially scaled up, such as Georgia and UK's drive on entrepreneurial skills development, or the Eastern Partnership drive on the use of big data to develop labor market policies. But celebrating 25 years is more like a future step, as it is for the ILO. Hence, I'd like to mention two initiatives that we are currently running, and we invite you to join. One is called Benefits for People, and it is a repository of best practices exploring the impact of education in promoting employability. And the second one is the launch of the new award on entrepreneurship as key competence development for the upcoming EU Vocational Skills Week, which is happening next October in Helsinki, and we invite the ILO community to join, and happy birthday.
Thanks a lot, Daria. And I'm going to dive into the last and final trend, which is a rehumanizing trend. The future is human again. That's your last entry point, Gert, to reflect upon. So over to you again.
Thank you. The future could be heaven or it could be hell. I call this hell-ven. And this is not up to technology to decide, because technology can do both. I mean, the telephone can lead to the fact that you don't come over and visit anymore. You can get hooked on television just like you get hooked on Facebook. So how technology changes us, that's really up to us. We can use it as a positive force, or we can use it for bad things. And we have to think about which way we want to go, because this is really the truth about technology. Technology does not care at all about what moves us. It has no ethics. I mean, this machine does not think about the purpose of life, and neither should it. So if you give a computer the job to make paper clips, as many as possible, it will make a paper clip out of you if you're available. Right? It doesn't care, because it doesn't know what it means to be alive. It has no values, has no ethics, no understanding, no morals, no purpose, no value, nothing. Right? Ethics is the difference between what you have a right to do and what is the right thing to do. And the computer can't decide that. We have to decide that. Maybe our politicians can think about that, ideally speaking. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, said something really important in Brussels 3 months ago. He says, technology can do great things, but it does not want to do great things. It doesn't want to do anything. We have to keep that in mind. If we want great things to be done with technology, equality, fairness, diversity, all these things, we have to make technology do that. And we have to make technology companies do that. Because they will not do it by themselves. I mean, who voluntarily pays taxes, right? You have to have those restrictions. That's why we need this. I proposed in my book, the Digital Ethics Council. I know this is a difficult job to have, to be on that council to decide what is the right thing to do. But the European Commission yesterday or the day before launched this, right? The ethics guidelines on the future of AI, on trustworthy AI. Very good step forward. You should read the whole thing. It's really important to understand where this is going. I think it's going in the right direction. So in this future, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this animation to work. So it's not playing. I'm going to skip this one then. This is the main thing, right? We have to rehumanize what's around us with technology. I think it's important to realize that as we use technology, that technology is not what we're seeking. What we're seeking, generally speaking, for humans, of course, is happiness, self-fulfillment, contentment, simple stuff. Right? Technology is a tool. And if we want to have a job in the future, then we have to learn things that put us in the context of this. Rehumanizing technology, using it for the human purpose. Back to you.
And this brings us back to the hackathon. The last group that also focused on this last team, they came up with a concept or a story which simply can be labeled as stay human. So that's the last group of participants that you will see before we move into the final reflections of this 1 hour of future conversation. So
Hi guys, as you can see, this is me just 1 hour before. Our challenge was how can we identify ourselves as humans in a world completely dominated by machines and robots. So we were struggling a lot, but we finally came up with an amazing idea. A powerful device that is in one end so complex, but in the other end is so simple, is completely sustainable, and we can also bring it with us everywhere. It already is in ourselves as humans. Creativity, empathy, humor, these things characterize us as humans instead of machines made by algorithms. So our solution is keep in mind to stay human. Stay human, guys. This is the only way we have to maintain our identity, and to overcome failures. Thanks.
This hackathon and all these reflections, you have seen them now also, Gert. If you have to come up with some final reflections from your side after the 5 different key entry points, then how do we now have to work ourselves towards this future you have been sketching, and maybe give us some suggestions out there. Back to you.
Thank you. First, I want to reiterate, the future is better than we think. I think this is really important for us to realize. We have so many possibilities. It's not that we're lacking possibilities, we're lacking solutions to some of the consequences of the possibilities. And we have to look at this like this, but in this world, I'm much more concerned about the fact that we are going to become more like the machines. The biggest problem is not the machines will take over, not the next 20 years. 50 years, I don't know, we have to talk again then. But it's not that. It's the biggest problem is that we may become too much like them. We get too lazy, we don't think, we outsource information, we don't make up our own mind, we listen to everything that Facebook is saying, nobody else, we vote the wrong direction. We do all these things because we've become utterly more concerned with convenience than with consciousness. And if you're more concerned with convenience, I can guarantee you, working like a robot has no future. And that's becoming apparent now. So be the opposite of a robot. I think that is what has future potential. And I see two great spheres here. I see technology as a great employer also, algorithms. And I see this, the androrithms, as a great potential place for us to beef up our capability. But make no mistake about this is a back and forth. We actually have to look at both ways. I mean, ideally speaking, you can do STEM and Hacky at the same time. But if you have to make a choice, everybody has to make their own choices. In a world that's dominated by technology, we have to become more human, not less. And more human also means less efficient. Humans are not efficient. Sorry to say that. Humans are not perfect. I used to joke and say, well, if you want a perfect person, marry a robot. Because we are just not. We have mysteries, we lie, we make mistakes, we sleep, we waste time, we get drunk, we do all these weird things, right? And the future is about these things. That's what makes us human. I mean, I can guarantee you, if your job in the future is to figure out how to have an empathetic relationship with your customers, you'll always have a job, because the computer doesn't know what it's like. The computer knows, when you ask the computer and you say, okay, what kind of data do you have? Computer has every possible answer. If you ask the computer about what does it feel like, it's quiet, very quiet. So that's actually a good combination for us, a good future. I think in this future, there's 2 cards at the table. Here's our cards, the same that we've always had, and here's the cards of technology. I really think we have to invest as much in humanity as we invest in technology. And that goes vice versa too. I think that's very important to understand how that handshake could happen in the future. So I want to leave you with a paraphrase of Steve Jobs, rest in peace. He used to say, stay hungry, stay foolish. That's also good. I would say, stay hungry, stay human, keep learning. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Gert, for this inspiring talk. Thanks a lot also the students who participate at the hackathon. Thanks everybody who was here. We're sharply on time because the Director General and the Financial Times are waiting. We're going to hand over officially from Turin to Geneva. And I would like to invite the Director, Mr. Liu, again to officially do the handover from Turin to Geneva.
Thank you very much again for Gert, Tom, and everyone, especially the young students. Now is the human being to decide to hand over the floor back to the Geneva, to the DG. Thank you.
Stop. Okay. So we hand it over back to Geneva. We are now on our own. And here, not to stop it too abruptly, Gert is of course available for continuing the conversation. He will be there in the back because his book, The Future on his book here on humanity and technology is out there. So if you go there, you can actually take one book and also Gert can sign it. If you have other questions on the future, on technology and things, feel also free to ask it. And with this, I'm going to officially close and thank you for coming. So thanks.
Thank you.